Welcome back to the Hishaku Hideout, a weekly podcast where we talk about the latest chapter and everything Kagurabachi. I'm here with Dice,
Yo, yo, yo.
and today we're going to get into chapter 72. Now, just to start off, I'd like to say it looks like I was right. You know, we're starting where we left off from last chapter, continuing the conversation, right? You know, that it's pretty insane the fact that we get to see what Yura's like, how he talks to Samura, right? Because I think it's so funny how he kind of like sarcastically brings up what's in the textbooks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I thought that was really good. I agree with that. I thought that was really nice just to kind of kick things off. And even like Samura, just right off the top, like, give me a break. Like, he's after like what happened with his ex-wife, and for Yura to just start BSing right off the bat. I loved it.
Yeah, and that's a good point that, we talked about the timeline, like what's happening in the timeline, where's this take place, because we didn't know, it most likely looked like it was going to be right after the wake, but, we get the confirmation from Yura, he's like, I just got done dealing with my wife's wake, and now this is like, piling on.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like the chapter doesn't waste any time really. Like it goes straight into like the BS and like you said and what's in the textbook. But we and Samura, like we get it. Like that you didn't come all the way to say that, right? And so like Yura just gets into it in terms of like the eradication and the reality of the war. Like what are your thoughts on that?
Yura, like, the big thing is, like, where does Yura fit in all this? Like, that's, like, my first thought. It's, how does he know? We get the reveal of, like, the royal family. The royal family was the ones. And, I've seen a lot of takes on Twitter and stuff that people are taking, like, I took it as, he's basically telling Samura, like we just mentioned sarcastically, what's in the textbooks. The royal family, made them invade Japan. We see the map of Japan of how far the invasion got. They almost took over like all of Tokyo, but they drove them back with the enchanted blades, and then they encroached upon their land. But then the treaty and all that happened. But what exactly, like, who was all there at the treaty? Like, if you look at the panel where they're talking at the table to sign the treaty and all that, like, and this all stems from, like, where Yura comes from. There's a guy standing next to the short Kamunabi member and, like, the head Kamunabi guy that I don't recognize. And, I mean, maybe it's just the prime minister, which I'm sure that's what it is, but we've never seen him. So that kind of, like, now it's kind of just like I'm looking more for like where is Yura fit in all this? Where does he come from and stuff like that? Is he part of the royal family? Could Kunishige be part of the royal family? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot, and I think that panel that you're referencing of the treaty is in itself, I think, like us as theory crafters and just enjoyers of the series in general, like there's just so much to look into really, even though there really isn't. But in the sense of like that one guy you mentioned, I was actually focusing on the guy in the back, which kind of seems to have like the Sazanami kind of hairstyle, but the hair is obviously black. And I was wondering if that was like, if that could have been Yuro, just another of the Kamunabi members, because there's also a bunch of Kamunabi members, and I think how they fit into this is just as important as how Yura and the Hishaku fit into it. And so, yeah, obviously there's the guys on the other side of the table as well. Obviously we don't think any of those guys are important, or at least I don't think. But yeah, I think, where Yura fits into all this is what we're looking forward to. And I think that's going to be the next big reveal. I don't know if like if it's, I'm not sure if the reveal is going to take place, if that's going to be the next big reveal taking place, but I do think at least that's what I'm looking forward to the most right now.
Yeah, I agree, because it's pretty interesting to, like, you mentioned this before we started recording, of just how heavy of a like info dump, like lore dump that we got in this chapter. Things that we thought that would maybe be like sprinkled, throughout the arc. we just got he just dumped it on us. And I mean, a lot of people I feel like are kind of taking it as like, you know, this might be everything. I think this is like maybe not just the tip of the iceberg, because it is a lot that we got, and I think it is substantial information that we need, but there's still like pieces at play in the background here. Like the royal family is the thing that really stuck out to me. You know, the person that you were talking about with the Sazanami hairstyle behind like the people I was talking about in that treaty panel.
Yep.
I think there is a Kamunabi member that he was the one that was kind of hitting on Hiyuki. He has that kind of like front ponytail type thing. So I think that's him. But we also need to know what Kamunabi members were like on Kunishige's side. You know what I mean? Like we need some, you know, we do need like clarity on like a lot of things still. But this was a very good chapter to like I guess start breaking the door down. And you know, it's a shonen story, so we know there's going to be another twist, or you know, there's a big twist that's going to come. But I mean, after that we do see, you know, or excuse me, going back a little bit, you know, he talks about how like they were savages, you know, they're still humans though. And you basically eradicated humans that just had a resistance to Datanseki. And I think Hokuzono like really shines in this chapter where he shows the panel of the woman holding the child. Then later on in the chapter, when you know he talks about like the Kensei, the swordmaster, and the malediction and all that. He shows that same panel, but they're now like skull and bones. Like just the visual storytelling of seeing a mother and a child, like they're now like just skeletons. It's like, it's really like devastating, honestly. Like it's dread. That's what the swordmaster, you know, brings.
Yeah, and I just love because we see the swordmaster in this chapter like we've never seen him before, right? And it's, I think the way his eyes are like super dark, which was something that we saw kind of shades of during the Rakuzaichi with Kyora. Just kind of seeing the full extent or the full power of the Shinuichi in what was like the malediction is really crazy to see, as well as, you know, satisfying. You know, it's kind of fucked up, but I mean in the sense that like this is what we've been looking forward to, and we see kind of like the imagery with the butterfly and as well as the plant life that we've been talking about for a minute. And I think to be fair, to me this chapter obviously tells us a lot that we didn't know, but like you said, there is still so much that to find out, right? And I think a lot of what we get here is also just detailed or explanations of what we were kind of already suspecting in terms of, you know, once again, the master swordsman and what happened during the war. This just kind of confirms it, right? And yeah, you know, it gives us a statistic: 200,000 lives were lost in Shikoku, in terms of, you know, once again, what the swordmaster did. And we also see that the swordmaster had like a whole statue as well for him, which was definitely, or I don't know really, but I wonder if this was kind of put up before or after the Seitei War. It might have just been honoring his achievements during the Seitei War, since that what that panel would imply, right? But yeah, I think the Kamunabi and the fact that we don't know almost anything about them, that's just, to me, that's just as important as Yura. Yeah. Because to like to your credit, what you just said about there being another reveal in the story, like I said earlier, I think that's what that is gonna be. It's the Kamunabi and Yura, and how that probably isn't what Chihiro has led to believe.
Bro, like it's like I've honestly just been, my mind's been going nuts with theories or like possibilities of who's connected to what. Kunishige, you know, we find out later in the chapter, and we'll get there, but the sword master was Kunoshige's right-hand man, which is crazy. So, and looking at the sword master, we see him say more like a normal sentence. Like, it's like he's saying no peace treaty. They must be annihilated. Like, he shut
that shit down.
yeah, he's like, peace treaty, fuck
that.
Yeah, like and then we see the Eurus, what does it say, the true realm of an enchanted blade conforms to its master. So this guy must have been like, he must have had it in his heart, you know what I mean, like it conformed to him. So the sword bearers shape the true realm of their enchanted blades. So I guess that's like a confirmation maybe that the energy, like their spirit energy beast or animal that they get, like Sojo with his drag and Chihiro with the fish, these are of the person, you know what I mean, because it conforms to them. And
yeah, that's
how I took it. Also, this is going to be a hot take. I'm going to just get out the way now. 200,000 lives is like devastating. Like, knowing that kind of weight is unbearable. It's unimaginably like to kind of empathize, or what goes, like how you feel about that. Like, it takes a lunatic, and we see what kind of lunatic Kensei is. But it was a little underwhelming to me how Samura and everybody acts about the war, because sure, they do take responsibility for it, and that makes sense. Like, I'm not saying they don't deserve, or they can't have that guilt about it, because it's devastating. They feel partly responsible. But I kind of just felt like the way they talked about it made it seem as if they took part in the eradication themselves. You know what I mean? Like, they were the ones who stopped the sword master, because they said the others, I believe it's mentioned in the chapter that the other sword bearers are the ones that eventually went back to stop him.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I see what you're saying, in the fact that the other sword bearers didn't engage in the kind of wiping out of Shikoku after they waved the white flag.
Overriding the peace treaty to go and slaughter people who lost the will to fight, or just innocent civilians.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point to bring up. It does make me wonder, because I don't think Samura, if Samura is doing this, there's probably good reason for it. So it makes me wonder if they all, they all, obviously not to the sword master's extent, but they all must have just kind of
a casualty. Yeah, they might have been a casualty of the fight, because they had to go stop him, and maybe Kensei's running amok in a city. They have to go engage him, and it's going to be a fight. Maybe some of their their moves that they use with their blades just kind of killed the surrounding civilians, casualties.
Yeah, but not that for sure. That would definitely make sense. But I think the sword bearers probably got more blood on their hands. And when the war was pushed back before the white flag was waved, I would assume that the other sword bearers committed some atrocities themselves. And I feels like I bring up every episode how we still haven't met, I believe, 2 remaining sword bearers. So these guys could be the biggest dick. Not worse than the master swordsman, right? But these 2 other sword bearers that we haven't met could be just huge dicks, right? That could have done awful things themselves. So yeah, I think, though, what you bring up is something I hadn't thought about. It must be that they did some crazy shit even before the white flag was raised.
And that's the reveal I was talking about, that there's a little bit more, a little bit deeper, that we kind of gotta go, because it can't. And if it's all just on like this is it, it's just all on the the sword master. I'm fine with that. I'm not saying it doesn't like break my immersion with the series. It doesn't like, it's logically sound. Like, I'm fine with it. It's just a personal, a subjective opinion that I think it was a little underwhelming compared to how they were acting about like this reveal. Now Chihiro still hasn't gotten this reveal. You know what I mean? And that's the big thing. It's like keeping the secret from Chihiro. This is a flashback of memory, and like I said, we still have more to know, because even Samura, I believe, at the end of last chapter is like, how much does he know? You know, like, it feels like Samura saying, like, there's still a bit more. And, you know, it could be that he just was talking about how the sword master, well, like the Magatsumi, is the core structure of the eternal contract. You know, they're all bounded by him, which is interesting. And to be honest with you, at this point, like the theories are that Samura is killing the sword bearers and bringing them back to life. That could be a red herring by Hokuzono. We don't know how Chihiro was revived. It could have been Enten. Maybe one of his fish could sacrifice one of the fish to like heal him, or maybe just like something that Enten structure. Like, and I think Hokuzono is purposely like leading, you know, because it could be the fact that Samura, you know, this blind dude and his owl killed and then revived somebody. Like, maybe he is crazy like that. His powers are nuts. But I do think there's a possibility it's a red herring, and, you know, he wasn't the one that revived. Like, Uruha, this would mean that Uruha is dead and that he didn't revive Chihiro. And if that is the case, I'm thinking, you know what? Just go kill the sword master. Say, yeah, fuck it. You know, we're gonna lose Samura. We're gonna lose the other two sword bearers. But, you know, we get rid of his crazy ass, Kensei, and then they could like hide. They could really like stash away the Magatsumi, and also Hirohiko would die. Like, you know, like it's kind of a decent trade just to go kill the sword master now.
Yeah, that's interesting, because this whole like what is revealed regarding the eternal contracts, that's definitely gonna stick around. Like that, you know, there's a purpose to that, and that's definitely gonna be related to however, this arc ends up concluding, you know, coming to a close in terms of.
Wait, can I stop you for 1 second? Yeah. I just want to mention it because this might lead into what you're about to say. The fact Enten is not a part of that binding, by the way. So it seems like Kunoshige did that on purpose to like allow his son, and when we get into theories, which we'll do towards the end of the episode, I got something spicy for you. But you know, it does seem like, you know, Enten is on its own thing. It didn't need to be bounded by the Shinoichi's contract. But my bad, brother. Go ahead.
No, and for sure, you know, that only makes sense. But I think this, you know, the whole thing regarding the eternal contracts, whether it's because of what your prediction, or not prediction, but what you just said, which is, to me, like you said, it sounds like a fair trade. It sounds logical. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something along those lines for, you know, the rest of the arc or whatnot. So this is definitely going to be relevant to however, you know, the rest of the sword bearers are pursued and taken down or whatnot. So
yeah, and you know, I guess it does sound like maybe I'm kind of giving like Hokuzono flack this episode, but realistically, it's more, I'm just trying to give him, like, I'm being I want to be objective about things. You know what I mean? I don't want to like just sugarcoat shit. I don't want people, like, I want y'all, like, when we say things, I want people to believe us, you know? And so far, I know everything that I've said, I felt, and same with you. And if people don't like it, like, you know, it's unfortunate, but this should be a safe space for conflicting, you know, thoughts, and to open up discussion about something that we all love. It's okay to have a criticism as long as it's like, you know, because he's not going to hear none of this. It's more just like we're talking to a void, essentially, or to each other. But it's okay to criticize the things you love. you should still hold the thing you love up to a certain standard, because that's why you fell in love with it in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, I have my own issues with this chapter, right? Like, I do love the fact that there's so much to just kind of extract from the chapter itself, but I told you before we started recording, like I think some of the earlier chapters, even some of the chapters that I wasn't like a big fan of or whatnot, like I think there's a big difference in terms of what we get here as a chapter and the lore and the lore dump. I'm very happy with us finally getting into what's revealed in this in this chapter. I do have to say, and this is kind of my hot take, is that this is not how I would have preferred this reveal to be handled. And I've kind of learned to judge stories on what they are and not what I expect them to be. So I'm very aware that this shouldn't warp my enjoyment of the story, but I can't help but feel that this would have gone farther, or like I think it would have gone a long way in terms of us getting this reveal with Chihiro, which you kind of alluded to earlier, the fact that Chihiro doesn't know this. To me, they're and like you said, the fact that it's not sprinkled throughout like more chapters or the remainder of the arc, or even further arcs like moving forward. I think there's just so much here that could have slowly, even though this has already kind of slowly been foreshadowed before, and like I said, like I don't think any of this really surprises us. Like obviously to see the extent of what the Master Swordsman and the lives, and getting the actual panels of the people and the citizens of Shikoku, as well as knowing that a treaty was signed. Like there's obviously a lot here, but I don't think we're really surprised about any of this. And so I just can't help but feel that the reveal itself could have been handled a bit better. I would have loved to kind of get this reveal alongside Chihiro and see how just like we see like the recontextualization of the story in real time and his mission. By the time that he finds out, we're already gonna know. And to me, it's not gonna hit as well as it could have, right? But I know better than to like judge beforehand. I've seen how, like, even though not a long time has passed since the Yori thing, I have enjoyed how that has developed so far. And so I hold out kind of faith for whatever Hokazono is going to do, right? But the chapter in itself, it's more like the lore that I'm really eating, that I'm really happy we finally got. But so I guess, I'm a bit conflicted.
It was cool to see the little Kamunabi dude. Like, he's like the Yoda of the gang. Like, he's beating Azami, and, like...
Hey, just not to... I'm sorry to interrupt, but not to brush over that, because I actually wanted to bring that up, like, truthfully. I think that isn't something to gloss over, because Shiba and Azami are, to me, probably, right there at the peak of sorcery that we know of here in Kagurabachi, right? And I don't know if this is the first time that we see this kind of little dude kind of scale to that level, or us kind of seeing something like this. But if it isn't and I just missed it, then my bad. But I thought, getting this in this little panel in the middle of the whole kind of Seitei War reveal was just kind of crazy, because it was so kind of casually done. And even Samura's like, no, I'll pass. So he knows he'd get whooped too. Like, who is this dude, bro? Like you said, like if this is some like Kamunabi Yoda, I'll say it right now. He's definitely not good. Like he's definitely not a good guy, bro.
Like, honestly, I'm thinking maybe there might be a twist where the entire Kamunabi is like the snitch. And they're just they're just playing this like game to, because obviously we know that they've like just stated outright that Chihiro, we're not allies with you, we're just working together right now. Like they're basically saying whoever gets the swords like away from the Hishaku, then it's gonna be them getting the swords from each other. Like they're aware of like Chihiro's this outlier, but I don't know, dude. There's a lot that goes in my head of like, because I'm okay with like extending, like even if it's a slight, it's like a very small chance of happening, I'm still okay with like expanding that like headcanon theory of seeing where it goes. You know, I think some people like shut themselves off to, and they only want to think about like the biggest possibility, which is like fine, and a lot of times it does go that route. But there's like always those like stories that have a crazy twist that no one expected, and like I'll always get excited for that. But you know, like you said, maintaining expectations, taking stories for what they are. You know, like, I mean, JJK, that story, if you couldn't do it and you love JJK taught you to like tailor your expectations a bit and tail them off.
Oh yeah.
But it was one thing that I do want to mention is the fact that Yori did overhear their talk. We don't know how much, but you know, we know the fact that she says a calamity, a job to do. Like,
I mean, it seems to me like all of it. Oh, well, yeah, we don't know if she heard like the earlier parts for sure, but
she had to have learned like something, which, I mean, remember, this is all stemming from technically like, not necessarily, it could like a memory flashback almost. Because the last panel of present time that we've seen is Iori's eyes just awaken like she's pressed right after Hirohiko got slashed. So that cutback is going to be insane, especially if the cutback is Kaguri's sword through her chest or some shit, and Samura pulling up.
I mean, imagine, that would be crazy, because I was just about to say, like, is she gonna be the one to tell Chihiro like the truth? Like, I could see that, but imagine that would be what we're expecting, right? But like, imagine something crazy. And let's just go into theories like right after this. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts of the chapter just before we go kind of just full into theories? I'll just kind of wrap up this thought in the sense that like Kaguri putting a sword through her chest could be like what stops her from telling Chihiro the truth, right? And it would be like, I think that would be like a very kind of neat moment that would really provoke us as readers, right? Of just like that desperation or that desperation of kind of wanting that to finally take place and being so close, right? But yeah, I'm just kind of rambling at this point.
Oh no, you like there's so you brought up one good point. Well, I mean, a bunch of good points, but like one thing that stuck out to me that you said that, or you were alluding to, and I think speaks perfectly to the issue, or not issues, but the concerns we have with how the reveal was handled, because it was still good. And thinking about how the story is going forward, we just got this huge info dump, or you know, lore dump of what happened in the war. You know, what, like big parts of it. I mean, we still have more to learn. But the thing is, like, this is the initial shock that we got, right? So when Chihiro finds out, it's not going to hit the same. You know, like,
yeah,
seeing Chihiro say that, like, his dad is technically, like, partly responsible for 200,000 lives, that, like, even if they maybe just hold that number back and let Chihiro find out that, you know, because it's not going to hit the same when we see him spiraling when he finds out. You know what I mean? So, but Hokuzono, like, I'm gonna let him cook, you know, because he has been cooking. He might have a plan, and there might, like I said, there might be a twist within the story that we got that even Yura might not know. You know, there might be information that Yura doesn't know, and like maybe that's the twist, that maybe Yura and Chihiro find out at the same time, and that's what rocks us. Like, that would be interesting. But overall, chapter really good, great chapter. My initial response was, man, this is my favorite chapter of this arc so far. But like, after sitting on it for a day or two, a day, I honestly come to the conclusion that I think it was chapter 67 that, you know, I said was my favorite. Remember, I was saying, oh, this is my favorite chapter, and you know, you weren't like as big on it, and you still like the chapter. Like, I think I have that chapter over this. You know, the chapter where Kunishige thinks about like re-solidifies and steals his resolve about like the time he spent with his dad is more important than, like, you know, like he wouldn't give up that memory for nothing. Like, that chapter, I think I do like a little bit more than this. But theories. Now, I said I had a spicy one for you. So excuse me, Ryura and the sword master, they have the same eyes. You know, it's shaded and dark for the sword master, but you can tell that they have the like circles in them. You know, he has like
Yeah.
he has a circle, and it seems like Hokuzono's given us a little bit more of a reveal. Like by the time we actually meet him, he's gonna be like he's probably gonna be like normal. You know, a normal speech. He's not gonna look like he needs chapstick really bad. You know, he looks dry as fuck here. Like when we meet him, I think he's gonna be kind of more of a normal representation. Like he's still gonna have a dark air about him because he's like tainted. I feel like I think the Magatsumi is just like the one sword that is, you know, it's too powerful, so it's tainting him as a person. And
I agree with that.
well, Europe, you know, this royal family thing came into play. And hold, let me get my notes here because I sent you some notes. The Kaguri with the sword thing, like it's kind of I don't want Yuri to die. By the way, a lot of people think I want her to die. I don't want her to die. It's more along the lines of Samura is a villain technically. Shihiro's our main character. He already killed our main character once. He killed Ura. You know what I mean? Like, this dude is a villain. Like, yeah, we sympathize with him, and he has had it hard, rightfully so. Makes sense. But he's got to get what's coming to him. And now his daughter is brought into the loop because of him. I'm thinking that, like, you know, we both think Samura's going to die. I think Samura's going to die within 5 chapters. This is the first chapter. Remember that. Now, we have a break after this.
Okay.
So I'm still counting down. There's 4 more chapters that Samura is going to have left to live. And I believe that because I think Samura is going to pop up and, you know, he's going to get somehow he's going to get bodied. Don't know how. Not saying Chihiro's going to do it, but maybe he throws himself in front of Yuri and saves her and sacrifices himself. I can see that. I do think like Samura won, you know, he blinded himself because of like the visual of like war with an enchanted blade was too much maybe.
Yeah, and see, because that would also kind of make sense to, or at least add up with what we talked about earlier about like the other sword bearers kind of playing their part and, you know, doing their own kind of wrongdoings with the enchanted blades once they were able to push back the invaders. So it's I definitely think it's something like that. I haven't really given it much thought, but it's because I've just always believed it to be something like that, really.
The one thing that, and I think like, because, you know, I kind of talk about, I'm kind of hard on Samura. I do think he's a great character, and like I don't have any issues or flaws with his like writing. But the thing is, he decided like his guilt forced him to side with the Hishaku. You know, he thinks it's the best way. Everyone believes that, or not everyone, but a lot of people believe that he can kill the people and then revive them so they're not tied to the sword master. And then that's how he's gonna, you know, he can kill the sword master without worrying about killing the other people can still live. But I need to see Samura's reaction when Yura comes back. When Yura goes back to the, you know, to meet him again and actually make the pact with him, I want to see the reaction when he gets told that they killed Kunishige. You know what I mean? Because they all respect and love Kunishige. You know, everyone they talk to, they like really have admiration for the man. So siding with the people that killed him, you know, even so, like there had to be, like I need to see if he thought about like other plans. Like did he go through it? Did he think about like, is there another way I can do this without, you know, siding with these people? That's what I need to see, because if he just like went right ahead and joined them, you know, I kind of feel like, you know, he got to die.
That's something I'm conflicted on as well, because and once again, there's just I'm just so confident that there's a lot we still don't know about most definitely Yura, but his deal with Samura as well. And so I'm I'm one of the believers that Samura made the kind of the right choice from where he stood, honestly. I also think that it's because I'm one of the believers that Yura's from Shikoku. Once again, there's nothing to really back this up, but it's just
Yeah,
it might be too obvious, right? It might be too obvious, and we might get it might just be a red herring, especially considering how this chapter starts, which would most definitely kind of lead you to believe that he was somehow affected by what took place in Shikoku. And then, kind of what you brought up regarding the Swordmaster's eyes. It's just I'm trying to draw connections and
there's
see
a
kind
lot.
of what adds up.
There's a lot of connections though.
Yeah, and kind of a lot of things that you could deduce depending on what is accurate and what isn't accurate. Because, like you said, I think guilt is an understatement for Samura. It's really like, and I'm pretty sure this has been said verbatim in the series before, but it's atonement, pretty much, for like what they did, right? And so I'm one of the few people that, and I say few because, like you said, I have seen a lot of people on the internet kind of come up with a billion things that Samura could have done instead of going to the Hishaku or making a deal with the Hishaku. But I just insist that there are like layers to behind his decision, right? And to me, it just makes perfect sense, especially what we know about like Yori and everything.
That's fair.
And the Kamunabi, bro. Look, he went to the Kamunabi. Like, wait, hold up. Like, I can't just not bring this up. He went to the Kamunabi. Like, we can't. He went to the Kamunabi. He went to that Yoda dude. And he basically gets brushed off. So I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe I haven't really thought about it enough.
That's a good point. Going like in a Itachi route, where he is a good person. But he's doing a bad thing. Like, we hate him because he killed Uraha. We talked about that last episode. That's really the only reason why we dislike Samura. Or like, I say we, but I'm talking about like just how viewing his actions within the story, why we view him as a villain. If we didn't meet the sword bearers and he just started killing them, we wouldn't care as much. Like, Hokuzono did do a good job of stepping his character out and giving him layers enough for us to actually like think through it and view him on a like the nuanced like layers that he has, because he's a father.
He's flawed.
Yeah, he's a PTSD. He's a father. He's he's like the fastest sword even before the enchanted blade. Like, there's a lot of things that you can like just kind of take from his character without there's a lot of context that's on the paper that's not actually written. You just he comes off the page really well. One theory like I wanted to talk about, this was the theory I was supposed to bring up, but I just found my note on it. I think that Yura also went to Kunoshige's house before he killed him. And I think he made a pact with Kunoshige to spare Chihiro. Now, Kunoshige didn't tell him about the 7th enchanted blade, obviously. He just told him where the 6 were, because no one thought about there was the possibility of a 7th. And that's like Kunoshige. There's a panel of Kunoshige telling Chihiro, Samura's got the fastest sword work I've ever known. It's worth seeing. Like, he's telling him, like, one, in that chapter we get the confirmation that they did go to Samura's house when Chihiro was like in his teens, or a year before. It was a year before Kunoshige died, I believe. Now, I think like Kunoshige was like planting seeds for Chihiro to develop. You have the eye. I know. He knows he has like the special eyes. He's teaching him through like the creating the swords, like about discipline, things like that. And then he's like giving him little nuggets. Oh, it's worth seeing Samura's sword skill. So he allows Shiba to go out and like, maybe it's meant to be like that. It was just a random occurrence. Maybe he told Shiba to plant Samura there, or get some, go where Samura is, find out where he's at or whatever. And then that way they can make the connection, so Chihiro can start like visually seeing what this like great sword work is. and that would make Kunishige like, that would just elevate his character of him like stepping out, like trying to protect his son for the future. You know what I mean? Like, I can't be there with you. I have to. I know karmic retribution is coming. You know, I know I'm gonna die, but before that, I'm gonna make sure you have all the tools and skills to protect yourself. You know what I mean? I hope that's what it is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I could definitely see that being the case. Like, because it doesn't even have to be about like him knowing anything regarding Yura or the Hishaku. Even though I know you brought up the theory, especially of specifically about Yura making a pact with him regarding Chihiro's survival, I guess. That would make sense, right? Because even Yura, when he sees Chihiro back in the Rakuzaichi arc, he says how, you know, he had been looking forward to seeing him, and obviously, what was it, the kind of the hatred he had sown or something. I forget what exactly he said, but and that could just be typical villain talk, right? But I don't think it's definitely not a reach to think that something like that could have taken place. But regardless of, you know, regardless that theory, I do think it's definitely it definitely works. The fact that Kunishige, like you said, just karmic retribution. He knew that eventually he was gonna have to pay, like the sword bearers, for what they did, or at least felt that way, right? Because, you know, Kunishige's always painted in this positive light, right? And so I do wonder how much of what kind of happens to him he anticipated, and whether that was something that he was kind of fully embracing with open arms. And I don't really have any theories for kind of this segment today, but to me, just kind of things that, once again, I'm looking forward to seeing more of is that relationship with the master swordsman. Like, after the Kamunabi and like the Europe reveals, that's what I'm looking forward to as well. Is there has to be like an explanation for that, because just like, imagine your best friend is just like a savage, and you're like this just chill guy, you know, like you got some explaining to do, right? And so it makes me wonder, was Kunishige much different? You know, we've talked about this you know, not in during the podcast or whatever, but was Kunishige a much different person before he had Chihiro? Was he kind of like a radical? Was he a savage himself, just on this side of the fence? Or was the master swordsman this kind of much different person, like better person? You know, was he kind of corrupted?
He's just a demon in the streets.
Yeah, was he always like that? Like, or like you said, did the Magatsumi kind of corrupt him? Because I think it is very nice, or I think it's worth noting, like you brought up earlier, that this chapter states that what is done with the enchanted blade is merely like a reflection or an extension of the wielder. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see that the Magatsumi is the one exception. Is the one sword that, like you said, is just too powerful. It will override any user. And so it gets me thinking, you know, who was any of them different back then? How, you know, just the whole lore behind them and their backstories, to me, is going to be something to pay attention to as well.
Facts. You know, and the last thing I'll bring up is the Magatsumi, we know is connected to the other swords. I'm wondering if the sword master, if he gets his hands on the Magatsumi, can he reach the other swords? Like, because we know that sword is connected to the other ones. So can he, like, maybe to a lesser extent than what he did to Kiora, but, you know, maybe, because it took all 5 of them to bring him back. So I wonder if he can, like, you know, if it's connected to the sword somehow, like another way. I mean, I doubt it, because, you know, something like that would have been said, but that's just like a little thought that I had. Other
Not
than
necessarily. I do think, like I said, I think there's more to come on those eternal contracts, or that big overlapping contract. So.
And remember, my original theory, or remember, like I said, maybe on our first episode, or maybe I didn't even say it on the podcast, I thought that all the sword bearers may have been criminals before, and basically using them as like they were test subjects. Because remember, you'll blow the fuck up if you get touched Datanseki. You know?
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
So they were like, they were using like criminals that had like sword skill, and, you know, they like Kunishige, maybe he was a criminal too, but he was like a gifted sword crafter, or maybe he's just a regular crafter of swords or whatever, and they let him choose which prisoners fit the sword. But I doubt that anymore. But Yuraha is really what got me thinking that, just kind of how they acted with him. But other than that, I wonder if he offered Shiba like the Magatsumi.
Yura?
Yeah. No,
Kunishige, my fault.
Yeah, like, just I wonder if he was like, hey man, you're of like strong soul, you have a good sense of self. I could see you wielding this one, the strongest blade. And he's like, nah, I'm good.
Man, I just want more on their relationship, bro. Because like
Shiba.
we know Kunishige's tied with Azami, and like we've straight up seen in panel like interactions between Kunishige, Shiba, and Azami. We know they were tight like back then, but like once again, like where does the fucking master, like how does the master swordsman fit into this, especially being Kunishige's tightest or closest ally or whatever? Like,
yeah, and we know Shiba to be that. Yeah, we
exactly.
know Shiba was that guy like throughout the whole story. It's like Shiba was the one come and visit him.
What, did the four of them like just go to school like when they were kids or something?
There'll be a
like,
spinoff series. It'd be like a high school com.
I mean, there's most definitely should be like a flashback arc at least.
The Han era all over again.
Oh, fuck. I mean, hey, we got the Seitei War at least, man.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yeah, well, honestly, I think that'll do it, right? Good chapter, good episode. I always appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think there's just so much. To be fair, I felt like I've been all over the place this episode just because there's just so much information. I'm like borderline overwhelmed. There's really so much to like talk about for days and the following weeks. There's a break chapter or a break week, like you said. So we have time to kind of look back at this and really let it sink in, as well as look back in the story and see what are some of the implications, what might have been foreshadowed. But man, this chapter was a lot. So I'm looking forward to what the people have to say in the comments. So
yeah, and you've been great this episode, bro. But I know what you mean. It's just the fact of like when you're talking about it, there's like other thoughts in your head to like that you want to like trickle out, because it's like processing one after another thought of like theory, discussion about this. It's like what ifs, and it's definitely a heavy chapter.
Yeah.
And just as a quick mention, like you said, there's a break week next week. We are not going to do an episode. We did say that break weeks are when we're going to do like tier lists or like just, fun little videos, but we both got a lot going on. So we're just going to take the week off. And we'll hit y'all back the next break week. We'll do like a tier list of, the characters now that we have a good we have a good pool of characters. But just a heads up on that, guys. I appreciate you staying for the video. Remember, like and subscribe, and like Dice said, comment what you thought of the chapter. And Dice,
no, I appreciate you guys.
all right, peace.